Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about standalone fantasy books that I want to read but that I don't own. So these are all books that have piqued my interest at one time or another, and I've added them to my Goodreads TBR, but I don't own them and I haven't gotten them from my library. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box for links to all of my social media, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways from me. So I have 8 books I want to share with you guys, and I only have 1 middle grade and 1 young adult. The rest are all adult. If you're just interested in skipping to the adult books, I'll put a timestamp down below. The first book is my middle grade book, and that is The Near Witch by Victoria Schwab. So Victoria Schwab is one of my most owned authors. She's one of my favorite authors. She writes middle grade, young adult, sci-fi, fantasy. She's such a versatile writer. And I believe The Near Witch was her first ever book. It was published for a little while. It was taken out of print, and then about 2 years ago, it was put back into print. But in The Near Witch, we follow a girl named Lexi, and she lives in this small town called Near, where everybody knows one another. And there is this ominous fairy tale or tale about an evil witch that lives in the woods outside of Near. One day, this mysterious boy shows up in the town, and at the same time, children from Near start going missing. Lexi has to partner with this mysterious boy to investigate what's actually happening because everyone suspects that this boy is the cause of the disappearances. So they have to figure out what's going on, and that means confronting this fairy tale about this evil Near witch. I've heard that this book is very fairy tale-esque, atmospheric, and there's a really cute romance, so it's definitely one that I would like to read at some point or another. The next book is my young adult book, and that is Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This one piqued my interest. Number 1, I love the cover, but number 2, the concept sounds really, really unique. But we follow a girl named Serena, and she is 16 years old, and she works in this traveling circus, and her gift is to create illusions that come to life. And these illusions can see, touch, feel. They're very much like people, but they're technically illusions. Well, one day, someone starts murdering these illusions, and Serena has to figure out who the heck would do this, and she goes to investigate, see if she can figure it out, while all the time questioning herself, can you actually kill an illusion? Because illusions don't really exist. So, like I said, sounds like a super cool concept. I love anything that has to do with like circuses and things like that, so another one that I really want to read at some point. Next, we have the Simarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I believe that this is a standalone. I'm not really sure how it fits into all of the books outside of The Lord of the Rings. I'm really not educated in that, and I've never read anything outside of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but I want to. But as far as I know, the Simarillion follows like the first age of Middle-earth, and they are underneath the rule of this other Dark Lord called Morgoth. Somehow the Dark Lord has in his possession these magical gems that contain this pure light of Valinor, and the High Elves wage war to get these gems back. And there are characters in this from The Lord of the Rings, such as Elrond and Galadriel, who do participate in the war against this Dark Lord. So it just sounds very Tolkien-esque, and I'm sure it will add way more history and context to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and probably one I should pick up very soon. Next, we have The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie, and I think that this is Anne Leckie's first ever published fantasy novel. She normally writes sci-fi as far as I know, but let me know if that's incorrect. And I've never read any of her sci-fi, so this would be a new to me author. But this book came out a couple of years ago, and it just really sounded interesting. In this book, we follow a kingdom called Eredin, and it is protected for centuries and centuries by this god known as the Raven. This god chooses a human ruler to act on his behalf to rule this kingdom, and this ruler is called a lease. And the lease has to offer up some sort of blood magic in order for the god's will to be enacted through the lease. But over the centuries, the power of the Raven has been substantially weakening, and there's actually a usurper that has been placed on the throne, so it's not even the person that this god chose. And there's actually a lot of secrets and conspiracies that are going on with regards to this god, this Raven Tower, this usurper, that are about to become known to the rest of the world. So it sounds like a very interesting premise, a little bit dark. Blood magic is something that can be really interesting if well done. Another one that I would like to get to at some point. Next, we have Tygana by Guy Gavriel Kay. Guy Gavriel Kay is a very famous fantasy author that has been around for a long time, and I have never read any of his work, and Tygana is a standalone. And just based off of the blurb, it sounds like it's very like traditional fantasy. But in Tygana, we follow a land that is ruled by a very evil king and is cursed by a very dark sorcery to the point where no one can remember the land's name. It can't even be uttered. But there's this group of people that decides to rise up against this evil king and wage war upon him and the dark sorcery. That's all I know about it. I don't know if it involves like different races. I don't know exactly what type of magic it includes. It just sounds like your traditional good versus evil fantasy, which is something that I can always go for. Next, we have The Golem and the Ginny by Helene Wecker. But in this book, we follow two mystical characters. The first one is called Chava, and Chava is a golem who was made of clay and brought to life by this rabbi who practices dark magic. And then we follow Ahmad, who is a Ginny, and he was born in Syria, and he has been trapped inside of a copper flask for centuries and centuries. Somehow, both of these mysterious beings find themselves in New York City, and I can't remember what year it takes place, but it's definitely got some like historical fiction elements in there. I want to say it's like the 1920s or 30s. I might be completely wrong, but both of these characters find themselves in New York City, and they cross paths, they become friends, and they have to navigate New York City. And I'm sure that there are other plot lines in there that I don't know about that have to do with these two characters and their magic, but it just sounds like something I've never read before. The two different creatures is like something I've never read before. I love the concept. Plus, adding in those historical elements sounds like it'll be a unique read. Next, we have House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, and as far as I know, this is a fantasy horror. There are definitely elements of horror in this book. This has been recommended to me by people online. It's been recommended to me by people in my personal life, and it's a book that is on my Amazon wish list. So let me know if you've read this book because I've just heard nothing but good things. But this follows kind of like your traditional horror setup. It follows a family that moves into this house, and this house is not like other houses. It's kind of haunted. The family quickly learns that there's something unusual about it. One day, the kids kind of wander off, and when they come back, they tell these stories to their parents of strange things in this house, and they're creepy stories. So, like, they say that they found a dark abyss that kind of goes off to nothingness. They find this evil creature, and they start to hear growling coming from the walls. So it sounds like a haunted house setup to me. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of evil creature, and I'm just curious as to all the buzz surrounding this book. And finally, we have the Southern Book Hub's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is a book that I have been wanting to read for the longest time. It is a paranormal horror type novel, but in this book we follow a main character. I don't remember her name, but she is a housewife, and she's like really unsatisfied with her life, and the only thing she looks forward to is going to this book club with other Southern housewives where they read crime fiction novels and discuss them. And one day, this mysterious new man moves in down the street or in their neighborhood, and everyone's kind of taken with him. He's tall, dark, and handsome, but then some strange things start happening. People start going missing, and our main character begins to suspect that this new guy might actually be a vampire. I've just heard so many actually mixed reviews about this book. I've heard that it's really great. I've never read anything by Grady Hendrix before, but he's an author that I definitely want to get to at some point. All right, you guys, so those are some books, some standalone fantasy books that I want to read, but I don't own and haven't gotten from my library. But let me know in the comments which one of these books you read and if you suggested, because based on you guys' recommendations, I'll probably purchase one of them to add to my collection. So yeah, definitely let me know what you suggest, what you've read, what you recommend, and I will see y'all soon in another video. Goodbye.